Fifine is back at it again, where they've created a microphone to take on the Blue Yeti at the price of a Blue Yeti Nano. Let's talk about it. Fifine is back at it again with their K690 condenser microphone, which is clearly designed to take on the Blue Yeti as it mirrors its specs as well as features, even beating it in some departments. Now this microphone was sent out to me by Fifine themselves, but if you know me already, this won't affect my review in any way, shape, or form. Now then, back to the review. Now something Fifine's been doing supremely well as of late is their packaging, as they've used a lot of foam to keep their stuff safe. With that said, inside the box you're gonna get the microphone, a USB to mini USB cable, a stand adapter with another stand adapter inside so you can use it on different types of stands and boom arms. You also get an info card and a manual. Regarding the mic itself, we have a very nice all-metal build, aside from the buttons and knobs, of course, as well as these rubber bits that hold the mic in place. The metal base in particular feels super solid and is definitely weighted to keep it down on the table, with the rubber bits on the bottom to keep it from sliding around. The design of it also allows for a full rotation for easy storage and access. As for the buttons and dials on the microphone, it definitely mirrors the Blue Yeti, with a headphone monitoring volume dial and a mute button in the front, and a gain knob and a polar pattern switcher on the back, which also features every polar pattern that the Blue Yeti also has. Also, like the Blue Yeti, it runs on mini USB and has a headphone jack right next to it on the bottom. But unlike the Yeti, on bottom the thread is much smaller and you're gonna need to use the adapter if you're gonna put it on a boom arm or a mic stand. Now the K690 also took a design element from the Blue Yeti Nano, which are these little rubber bits here, rather than using a bunch of washers that'll fall out when I'm trying to take off the mic, making it very easy to mount and unmount this microphone from the stand. As I've mentioned before, the K690 is meant to take on the Blue Yeti, which is, while an old design, it is tried and true and still used today by many people. Before I go on, I should note that my Yeti is custom painted, but that's pretty much it. It's still a Yeti. Anyway, their specs are very similar on paper, so you can expect their performance to be very similar to each other. But when it comes to design, the K690 is more updated, with a more modern and simple appeal while also being more compact, though something I would have preferred to have been changed is the USB usage, as I would have much preferred the K690 to have used USB-C to be more modern and in line with all the other products that are around these days. Overall, I still much prefer the design of the K690 over the Blue Yeti, as it just works a bit better and it's much smaller and easier to use. The buttons and the dials just also feel better on the K690, and this is gonna get real nitpicky, but I also think that the LED for the mute button makes more sense on the K690, because on the Blue Yeti, when it's active in recording, the LED is just red, and if you decide to mute it, it just goes from red to blinking red. Whereas on the K690, if it's active, it's gonna be green, and if it's muted, it's red. It just makes a little bit more sense, in my opinion. Okay, so for the most part, I've actually already been recording on the K690 for most of this review, but we're gonna do performance tests with it against the thing it's trying to take down, which is the Blue Yeti. Now, both of them will be in 50% gain, and we'll just go through its polar patterns. Right now we're in a cardioid polar pattern, which means it'll capture sound in front of it much better than anywhere else. So if I move it off to the side, I'm gonna get a little bit quieter, and when I'm in the back, it'll be much quieter. Now if I move it back to the front, I'll slowly get louder again until I am back in the front. Now we're on the cardioid polar pattern. I'm gonna emulate if the K690 was right in front of me and I'm playing games to see if it captures any of my typing sounds and my clicking sounds. And that's how it's going to sound. Now we're recording on the old staple, the Blue Yeti, in a cardioid polar pattern. This is how I'm going to sound from the front, and being a cardioid polar pattern, you know it's going to change and get quieter as I move to the sides and to the back, as is the nature of a cardioid polar pattern. And I'll get loud again once I move back to the front. Now I'm in the cardioid polar pattern to essentially emulate gaming close to this microphone at 50%, as I'm going to be typing to see if it catches my typing sounds at all, and if I can capture my clicking sounds at all. And that's how it'll sound. Now we're back on the K690 in omnidirectional mode, where no matter where I am facing on the mic, it'll still capture the sound of my voice quite well, because that's just the omnidirectional polar pattern for you, you know? Now we're using the Blue Yeti with the omnidirectional polar pattern, so it'll capture sound of my voice essentially quite evenly no matter where I'm at around the mic, whether I'm in front, behind, beside, and just basically all the directions around it. It'll capture my voice just the same in this omnidirectional mode on the Blue Yeti. Now we're on the K690 in the bidirectional polar pattern, which is designed to capture sounds in front of it and behind it well, which is good for interviews and whatnot. But this also means it won't capture sound from beside it very well. But if I move it to the back, it'll capture me well, as I said before. Off to the other side, it won't capture me nearly as well as back to when I move it to the front. Now we're on the Blue Yeti on the bidirectional mode, where it'll capture sound in front of it and behind it well, but not the sides. So as I'm in front of it, it'll capture my voice well, but if I move it to the side, it'll capture my voice a little less quite as loud, versus if I move it to the back of the microphone, where it'll capture my voice quite loud again, But if I move back to the sides, it won't capture it quite as loud as when I move it back to the front. Now we're back on the K690 in stereo mode, which means it'll capture my sound of my voice on the left side of it and the right side of it quite well. So right now I'm on the left side of it versus the front of it, and now I'm moving to the right side of it versus if I go towards the back, it'll be a little bit quieter compared to the front, as the focus is to capture the side-to-side sounds and the front with a focus on left and right. So that is the stereo polar pattern on the K690. Now we're on the stereo mode of the Blue Yeti, and we're going to be hearing ourselves from the left and right much better in this mode. So when I pick up my mic, you should hear me on the right side now as I move it back to the front, slowly shifting over to the left side. And I'm going to be a little bit quieter once I'm in the back versus the front of it. And I'm going to move slowly back over to the right side, and then I'm back in the front. So that's going to be how the stereo mode for this microphone will sound. Alright, now we're back to using the shotgun microphone on top of my camera because it's just honestly easier that way sometimes. Now onto the microphones. As you heard from the test, they're actually quite even in terms of sound quality. But something you may have noticed is that the Yeti was overall more sensitive, and this is both good and bad in its own kind of way. It's good in that the sensitivity allows the microphone to capture your voice a little bit better at even lower gain levels. But the problem is it also captures more overall sound, which is something I've noticed also. It was capturing sound from behind it as well as through the stand. Let me explain. You see, when you're using the Yeti as a tabletop microphone, the vibrations through your table or through your keyboard into your table will be sent from that table to the stand into the body of the microphone because there's no rubber in between to help dampen those vibrations. And that's probably also why it was able to capture the sound of my keyboard louder, not just because it's more sensitive, but also because there's less dampening. Now on the K690, thanks to these rubber grommets, it captures less of those vibrations. As those vibrations travel through your keyboard, through your table, into your microphone stand, it'll be dampened by these rubber bits holding onto the microphone, so less of those vibrations will reach the body of it, and the microphone will then not capture those sounds as much. So if you're using these as table microphones and you're gaming and doing communications with them, I think that the K690 does a better job. With the Blue Yeti, you're definitely gonna need like a specialized mount to help dampen those vibrations, but if you've seen them, they're pretty big, as this microphone is pretty huge in comparison to the K690. It's a tried and true design, but it's also a very old design that could use an update. Granted, there are updates done in the Blue microphone line, such as in the Blue Yeti Nano, where it does use these rubber grommets. However, if you switch to the Blue Yeti Nano, you lose a lot of the polar patterns and abilities that the Blue Yeti provides. Granted, you do save a little bit of money as the Blue Yeti Nano is cheaper. However, the Blue Yeti Nano is also the same price as the Fifine K690, but the Fifine K690 has the same capabilities as the Blue Yeti. The K690 is basically like having a smaller, more compact Blue Yeti at the price of a Blue Yeti Nano. It's just a no-brainer, you know? Now, if you want to buy this microphone, there will be a link in the description, which is an affiliate link, and it'll help me out as I get a slight kickback if you buy off of it. Anyway, that's pretty much all I got for today. This has been Technical, and I hoped this has helped.